Hi, my name is Jenny. I'm Danny's wife and Ruby's mom. I was born in Tarzana, California, April 23rd, 1978. I grew up in a little town called Moore Park, which is in Ventura County. When I was really young, my parents got divorced. After the divorce, both my parents didn't know the Lord. Someone invited my mom to church, and so she took my brother and I, and at that place, it was in Thousand Oaks, California, she gave her life to the Lord. And so we started going to church every weekend. Growing up, I don't think I really quite understood what that meant. I knew that there was a God. I knew that He loved me, but there wasn't this personal relationship. And I kind of lived my life knowing that He was there, and there was lots of rules, and you had to be perfect, and I tried my best to just fit in this perfect little box for my family and not make any ripples, because there was a lot of stuff going on in my life through the divorce and trying to hold things together with my mom and my dad. So when I was really young, I started taking ballet, and that became a real focus in my life. I danced all the way through until I was 18, and I ended up being in a ballet company dancing professionally. And that became my God. I don't think that I really understood the effects that had taken place from my parents' divorce and what was going on between them and their own personal struggles, the effect that it had on me. So I just dove into dancing, and that's a very controlled environment. And for me, I started battling eating disorder. That became very dangerous. At this time, my brother got invited to church by Danny, and they both had given their life to the Lord in this time, and were really excited. And I kind of saw that and thought it was interesting. They started inviting me to go to church, and I didn't really want to have anything to do with it, so I just kind of kept making excuses and really busied myself with dancing. And finally, to get them off my back, I told them I'd go to a concert that they were having at the church. And I went. I went and I realized, gosh, like, people at church, they're really not that weird. And it wasn't like how when I grew up going to church, it was totally different. Like, there was young people that wanted to be there, and they were stoked. And it kind of just tripped me out. I'd never seen anything like that. So, of course, it piqued my interest, which that was the whole reason for me going to the concert, was to kind of, find that I could be comfortable going to church. And so I ended up going back on a Wednesday to youth group, and I gave my life to the Lord when I was 18 years old. So Danny and I had a mutual friend. Danny and I hadn't seen each other for quite some time because I was dancing in the ballet company. And I heard that my friend Tim got in a really serious car accident. He was hit by a drunk driver. So I went to the hospital to go visit him, and as I was walking in, I see Danny in his car. So of course I walk over and I knock on the window just to say hi, to a friend I hadn't seen in a long time. And he rolls down the window, and I ask him, "Hey, how's it going? What are you doing?" And he tells me that he's praying. And I was really taken back, because the Danny that I knew before this was the guy who was always in trouble in high school and had nothing to do with church or praying. So it really was interesting. And so he asked me to come and sit in his car and have a chat. So of course I sit down, and he starts to tell me about how he had given his life to the Lord. He'd gone to Mexico and served on a missions trip, and how he had met this guy named Jesus and asked him into his life, and his life has completely changed. So I walked away getting out of the car going, man, that is really a trip. Like, glad that's working for him. He seems to be stoked on that, but yeah, we'll see if that really sticks. And little did I know that him and my brother were becoming best friends, and he was going to be in my house and talking to me about this all the time. So it's funny how things come together like that. I was asked to renew my contract with the ballet company, and I told them no. I really felt like I wanted to give everything I had to serving the Lord and helping young people. So Danny and I, we became interns at the church and started becoming really good friends. And slowly we both came on staff. And throughout time, we started dating. And it was awesome. fell in love, and eventually got married. 1 month after we got married, we got back from our honeymoon, the youth pastor informed us that he was going to be moving and we were asked to take over the youth group. At the time, there was 500 kids in the youth group, and it would just be Danny and I. And having grown up and being interns, going to staff, and then now be asked to be youth pastors, we had a lot invested in these kids' lives. We found out there was a lot of demands within it, and we never learned to say no. So we said yes to everything. So we found ourselves working 90 hours a week, and on our day off, we'd pretty much sleep in, grocery shop, do our laundry, and the whole week would start all over again. And it was fun, but at the same time, it was really taxing, and we didn't understand what we were doing to ourselves, never learning to say no. We had this event for junior high kids called the 12-Hour Blitz, and we took 4 busloads that night, and it started at 7 o'clock in the evening, and it would end 7 o'clock the next morning, and we drove them all over Southern California. And we happened to be in this little amusement park in Riverside, California called Castle Park. And we were getting on the dragon ride, you guys all know that, dragon ride, and sat down, and the next thing I know, like, my heart is beating out of control and sweating and feeling really, really frightened and wanting to get off the ride, not knowing, understanding what was going on with me physically. My hands were shaking, and I got off the ride and just sat down on the bench and didn't really know what had taken place or what was going on with me. Later I'd find out that I was having a panic attack, and that was the first time I ever dealt with anxiety. So over the next few months was a real whirlwind for me. I went from being on full-time staff to not even being able to drive my car or leave my house. I was just filled with fear and so much anxiety, and I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on, and the Jenny that I known was no longer present, and I just felt like I was looking outside a window and the world was going by without me. My mom took me to the doctor because we didn't really know what else to do, and they put me on some prescription medication for depression, and it didn't help at all. It actually did worse. It made me depressed. So not only am I now battling anxiety, I'm battling depression where I'm not wanting to live. And so the doctors didn't quite know what to do with that, so they kept changing my medication and changing my medication and changing my medication. Next thing I know, I didn't know up from down. We ended up moving, resigning as youth pastors at the church that we were at because of where I was at. We ended up moving down to Orange County, and that was a really dark time. Danny was working for a surf apparel company, and I was just trying to make it through the day and through the night, you know, not knowing if I would. I started battling depression really heavily and having really serious suicidal thoughts at that time. We ended up going to doctor after doctor after doctor, and all it turned into was one cocktail or another cocktail of medication. Not to say that medication is bad, but for me, it wasn't working and it was making things worse. So we ended up being in Orange County for about a year. Danny took a job in Danville at a church called East Bay Fellowship to be a youth pastor, and the depression carried all through that time, and all the way until about a year after the birth of Ruby, dealing with depression and anxiety and still not understanding and wanting to understand what was going on with me but couldn't. It had gotten so bad that at times I can remember specifically a time when Ruby was probably about maybe a year old. I was at the house and I had taken the medication that they had given me, and I fell asleep on the couch, and Ruby was in the house by herself. And all I remember is her hitting me to wake me up and saying, "Mom, Mom," and me falling back asleep. That day was a turning point for me, because I knew that there had to be more to life than this, than waking up, taking the medication, and trying to make it through the day.